Welcome to the Real CP Show. I'm your host, CP. And today's topic Cinco de Mayo. But Black history? Get over it. Giggle. Again, the topic today is Cinco de Mayo. But Black history? Get over it. Giggle. It's quite interesting in other ways, not quite interesting. That today being Cinco de Mayo, the 5th of May. Celebrations going all over different parts of the country. People going out to bars and restaurants and get togethers and celebrating this Cinco de Mayo. And still, how many people, by however millions, don't know even the true history, not even a piece of it? Let me say this again. But how many of the millions of people within the country don't have no idea about the true history or a piece of context or anything relating to what truly Cinco de Mayo was about? But if you bring up something about Black history, it's, oh man, hey man, stop bringing that stuff up. Oh man, that's the past. Why people still keep talking about that Black history stuff? What, that Black history? Oh my God, just call yourself Americans. I'm gonna get to that in a little bit. That little switchery type of tactic in itself. But yes, every day, various person that was in the country, they get tired of hearing anything dealing with black, or what I like to call black pain. And unfortunately, now this is not the show for that, but how many, unfortunately, numbers of African ancestors, Native Black folks keep getting reminded daily that within this country that has quite a number of supremacist personnel that can't stand any piece of eyeball of looking upon the American black. We can't stand them. And you still got numbers of African ancestors, Native blacks still out and about different places, still keep thinking that within this country that it's going to just treat the collective of American blacks as equal citizens, and they are not. Myself personally, I get tired of seeing daily the examples going against the African ancestors, Native blacks, and people getting reminded. And then, unfortunately, numbers of African ancestors, Native blacks, just like the proverbial clockwork, will jump upon the side of the person and get reminded without saying, wait a minute, how was this person before that? Well, they're the kind of numbers of American blacks out there, the sellout version, or the gullible ones, or the very ones that act very naive, or those are the kind of ones out there that say, oh, but look, this is America. You can do whatever you want to do, being the kind of person you want to be, work hard, etc., etc. Don't commit the crime, and be positive, be constructive, all that kind of stuff without no context. And then when numbers of them get reminded, then they want people to feel sympathy. I tell you. But at the same time, Cinco de Mayo, let's celebrate. Now, I'm not going to go into all the details. I'm not going to do all that. Again, some personnel know about the history, and there are people who don't know. Either way to me, however. But I just at least want to do a quick show about the Cinco de Mayo in general, in a nutshell. And for personnel who don't know, and if they might be interested in looking upon themselves to go in detail, and that's fine. If they don't, they don't. But I just at least wanted to get kind of a quick nutshell version about Cinco de Mayo. Okay. Give me 1 second. Okay. So around May the 5th of 1862, French troops, said several thousand in number, that was led by this particular general. And he talks about how they attacked a small town in uh, eastern central Mexico called Puebla. Okay. And so all these French forces, or this French number of troops, a few thousand, went to attacking and whooping and whopping and stuff like that, or pre-whooping and whopping. Let me phrase that. Not quite full time, but part time, whooping and whopping a little bit. Numbers of the peasant personnel to see, hey man, they need to bow down. They need to bow down to these number of these French troops, by however French powers, to repay this debts that however parts of Mexico owe to the French. And I think it was also the English. And so, however, they told numbers of English personnel, they ain't paying no debt. I don't care what you say, they ain't paying no debt. Okay, and that went whatever direction. And sometimes you get a little cocky, and and so told the French troops, or the French powers, I ain't paying no debt. What are you gonna do? The French powers like, look, you need to pay them debts to us. And however powers within Mexico was like, I ain't paying nothing. And then French said, okay, we'll be right on over there then. All right, whatever y'all gonna do. They called their bluff. And French forces, the French power, sent a few thousand troops over there to, go across Mexico and do some calling upon whoever to get that debt paid. And so one of the towns they stopped in was Puebla in Mexico, a small little town, mostly what I guess people call peasants and people that's trying to, do their thing as best as possible, right? Just trying to make a little living over there. And so the numbers of people in the Puebla was like, no, you're not going to sit there and basically keep trying to invade and do this kind of things like that. Not even on the political faction of not even understanding that their debt was owed to the French. But that didn't matter. It didn't matter to them because they weren't paying attention in the first place. And so yes, the French personnel got pushed back by numbers of peasants, things like that, or whatever equipment that they had. Right. A little small amount of equipment they had, and they pushed them back. All right, they was doing their thing. And however number of French troops, they'll sit over there, how the numbers maybe underestimated the fighting back of the numbers of personnel in Puebla. And so when the numbers of Puebla personnel fought back and pushed them away from Puebla, then they start celebrating. So however number of streets and whatever type of other things they would do, the celebration. Yes, we defeated the French troops. Ha ha! Yes, we defeated the French troops in Puebla. And that is where you get Cinco de Mayo in a nutshell. In a nutshell. And throughout America, this stuff is celebrated in quite a number of cities, big time. In big time, it's celebrated. And usually the context is still not talked about. They just stop overall that part of numbers of the Puebla personnel pushing back the few thousand French personnel, French troops, and they just stop at that. They never talk about the second part of it, that second act, when the French was like, okay, y'all think y'all did something, so we're going to go ahead and send even more troops. Now we won't make that mistake again, so we're going to send more troops on that situation, and then we're going to see how that's gonna happen. Here's the thing about it: See, you still got people that still confused and keep thinking that Cinco de Mayo, well, some of them have halfway thought pattern. They think they know what Cinco de Mayo is, and some of them think that that has something to do with Mexicans independence, which has nothing to do with that at all. At all. Okay? Cinco de Mayo is nothing but uh, the personnel in public fighting back the French, few thousand French troops. And so when the powers came back with quite a number of more troops, then that second act was changed, and they sit there and came whooping and whopping and stuff like that, and got that and got and took control over that area. Then didn't they? Took control. That's where you have French influence, in parts of Mexico and all different people as well. But that's Cinco de Mayo. The second act, the French troops, by more than only a few thousand, came in to whip and whopping and sat there and defeated the personnel then in Mexico in those areas to take over. But they make sure not to talk about that part. And the weird part about it, again, even in Mexico, that Cinco de Mayo is extremely celebrated regionally. It's not even celebrated even the halfway of the country. It's only celebrated very regionally. Regionally celebrate. So they celebrate Cinco de Mayo more in America than they celebrate over in Mexico. Isn't that something? Isn't that something on that? And you best believe there are personnel who want Cinco de Mayo to be a federal holiday. You know they're out there. Because ones out there will try to compare this to, Martin Luther King or some other situation. Well, Martin Luther King has a holiday. You comparing Martin Luther King to a Cinco de Mayo? You said the people out there? Of course there are people out there that want Cinco de Mayo as a federal holiday. But at the same time, Mexico, that's not even treated the same. It's treated as a very regional event. Think about how that sounds. You can have enough personnel that celebrate all over the place in America, but at the same during time, it's treated as a regional event in Mexico. See how that sounds? But let me throw something else out to you. Again, it's not going to be a long show. I want to read you something on this. Okay? So you have some personnel get mad and things like that's fine. Even though it's not me, I'm just relaying the information, right? I'm just relaying the information on that. So the thing about it is that I was reading something the other day, and it was talking about genetically, there is no such thing as a Mexican. Let me repeat this again. I'm just relaying information. Genetically, there's no such thing as a Mexican. Let me read it to you, a little bit of it. Medical researchers and census takers may lump Latinos or Hispanics into one group, but a giant study of Mexican genetics shows there is no such thing. Let me repeat this again. Medical researchers and census takers may lump Latinos or Hispanics into one group, but a giant study of Mexican genetics shows there is no such thing. It said Mexicans themselves show such extreme diversity that someone from the dry north is genetically as different from someone from the Yucatan as a European is from an East Asian. The findings published in the journal Science are important for medical research and healthcare. Before the Spanish conquerors arrived in the 16th century, Mexico was inhabited by Native Americans, different topic, who had carved out their own, often isolated kingdoms. These genetic differences show up even today. Let me say it again. These genetic differences show up even today. So you got people walking around talking about just saying Mexican. Now I understand why that happens. I understand that. It's not to say somebody needs to take that away and say, "Hey man, don't call yourself Mexican." That's silly, right? Even though you got people that don't like black folks call themselves black or African ancestry or anyway, all those different names, right? Just call yourself American, okay? But I'm going to read you something else. I'm going to read you something else. I'm going to read you something else here. Let me read you something else here. About 6 million U.S. adults identify themselves as Afro-Latinos. About 6 million U.S. adults identify as Afro-Latinos. Okay? See, the thing about, and that's a different topic that's not talked about enough. It's not talked about enough at all, right? We just say Latinos or Hispanics, and that's about all. And and just kind of lump a person in there and just say Latinos are Hispanic people, right? When you got numbers of Hispanic personnel, can't stand other Hispanic personnel. You got other Latinos, Latinas can't stand other Latinos. But again, that's a topic that's not talked about. But let me also throw this out to you, okay? It's this other thing I was reading. It says about a quarter of Latino adults say they have personally experienced discrimination or unfair treatment from other Latinos. Let me repeat this again. It said about a quarter of Latinos, adults, say they have personally experienced discrimination or unfair treatment from other Latinos. Having darker skin and being born outside the United States is associated with an increased chance of experiencing this type of discrimination. Okay, according to the Pew Research Center survey conducted in March 2021. So the thing about it said the Afro-Latino identity is a distinct one with deep roots in colonial America. As a result, it can often exist alongside a person's Hispanic, racial, or national origin identities. So they're not treated the same. Just because you say Hispanic or Latino don't mean Afro-Latinos or Afro-Hispanics or Afro-Mexicans are treated the same. But again, phenotypically, in some genericness, conniving way, that this system only wants to show numbers of Hispanics, numbers of Latinos, numbers of Mexicans in a typical generic phenotype way, as if there's no differences, right? But watch this. I'm a stop right here. Let's go with that. Hispanics and identity. When it comes to describing their identity, listen very carefully. When it comes to describing their identity, most Hispanics prefer their family's country of origin over pan-ethnic terms. Half, 51%, say that most often they use their family's country of origin to describe their identity. Let me repeat that again. When it comes to describing their identity, most Hispanics prefer their family's country of origin over pan-ethnic terms. Half, 51%, say that most often they use their family's country of origin to describe their identity. It talks about how 21% say they use the term American most often. That's not quite a lot, is it? See, it's a atrocious game that's being played, and people just accepting someone just saying Hispanic or Latino or Mexican. When again, you got higher numbers of Hispanics and Latinos and Mexicans, however numbers they can't even stand each other in certain parts. but the game is still anti-black. I'm not talking about the numbers, the sellout numbers of blacks. That's gullible and naive that can't understand and keep allowing people to play this people of color switchery demonic game. See, you don't sit there and hear various type of Hispanic organization, Latino organization, Mexican organization talking about uh, brown and black coalitions all over the place, like numbers of black folks, especially some high type of political personnel jumping up and down to my black and brown coalition, but you don't hear the same numbers of Hispanic numbers of high political personnel in general and different things going talking about brown and black coalition and people of color. They're not that foolish to talk like that, right? And think about when I was talking about the 1860s, when you're talking, so you're talking about when that time of Cinco de Mayo, what was going on then? What was going on then? The African ancestry Native Black folks, people, were enslaved. The majority of African ancestry Native Blacks in the time of Cinco de Mayo were enslaved. So you got more personnel that want to sit there and celebrate Cinco de Mayo without knowing what they want to know, nothing of what they talking about or thinking about in Cinco de Mayo, but at the same time you bring up something about Black history. Oh my God, why you got to keep bringing it up? Put it in the past. But at the same time, again, Cinco de Mayo is going on. The majority of African ancestry Native Black people were enslaved. But see, people don't want to talk about that overall. It's like the insulting to the greatness of the people like the Martin Luther King and the Fannie Lou Hamer, the great Fannie Lou Hamer, the Rosa Parks, and all that kind of stuff, right? The Fred Shuttlesworth, the Khalil Muhammad's, the Amos Wilsons, the Francis Cresswell. These great icons of knowledge. I mean, the list goes on and on, right? But that's a different topic about the achievements of Black folks. But what the system wants to show is non-constructive Black. They want to show some criminality and bad versions of hip hop and the sagging pants and this the negative version, right? Showing Black men as lazy, don't want to pay child support. Don't want to be committed to families, even though the majority of Black men, do stay in committed relationships, even though still you got however numbers, a quite number of Black men that do pay child support and things like that. You got the majority of Black men that are not lazy, right? But that's not what they want to talk about, right? Because it's all a atrocious game on that. But again, it's a different topic. So again, today was Cinco de Mayo, but Black history, get over it, giggle. See, even when you speak the reality, I'm not going to say the truth. I'm just saying the reality. This is what you got. You have personnel acting like a lot of people.
Kevin Bacon wasn't in Footloose. What? Of course he was. No, he wasn't. You lose. Of course he was. He was the star. No, you're wrong. Look it up. I don't have to look it up. It's common knowledge. He was on the cover of People magazine when the movie. Everyone knows Kevin Bacon was a star of Footloose. It was a huge movie. He was the lead. No.
That's what quite a number of people think, right? Because again, anytime you talk about things dealing with Black history, it's get over it, giggle. But at the same time, like I've done some other shows before, talking about, just ridiculous amount of money, aid going to the Ukrainians. But at the same time, you got high numbers of Ukrainians at the Mexican border. You see how this works? Money that went to numbers of Afghans a couple something years ago, right? Helping them out. Money going to what? Numbers of Asian personnel, right? Oh, they were affected by that Jew shot, but at the same time, the high race of Black folks affected by about the Jews, right? About the pandemic, right? Numbers of Black folks sitting there affected just as much as a lot of other people. Suffer the most in health situations, right? But the system want to make sure they help all these other different people out first. They can't stop trying to help border breaking illegal immigration personnel, free legal resources. Don't have to sit there and prove their citizenship when they sit there and get this free EBT card, getting that money. They get several kids, popping them kids out like candy bars, right? Automatic citizenship, food stamps, free medical for the kid, for the child, free infant meal, free cereal, free milk to border breaking illegal immigration personnel. But at the same time, I bet your black woman can't sit there and run across that border, break immigration laws, pop out child upon child, and sit there and get free pregnancy care. But that's a different topic. See, the game is great. And see, that's why I have to always say this again. I stand by what I say. Unfortunately, the African ancestors, Native blacks only have half a generation to one generation left. Let me say it again. I'll make sure I put this very clearly. Unfortunately, African ancestors, Native blacks only have half a generation to one generation left. It's too many external resources. And then you still got personnel that under the category of black from unfortunately, even certain parts of the great ancient continent, that however numbers of personnel still can't even stand the American blacks within the Americas. But even though without the American blacks, a lot of times numbers of personnel for whether the great continent of Africa won't even have an opportunity to even come over to America. And that's another different topic, right? Which it's not for today, because even when somebody says Africa and you got numbers of African personnel say, whoa, but don't try to put me in that one category. We're from this country. We're from this tribe. We're from this area, right? We're from this particular language speaking part. Don't try to put us in that category just saying Africa, right? African, right? That's a different topic, right? But I'm saying it's something about this horrendous anti-black African ancestor Native blacks. Something about that is disgusting and terribleness on that. And unfortunately, it's a lot more weakness going on within the African ancestor Native blacks. This is why an overall amount of various parts of the society as a collective has so much anti-black hostility. Even though American blacks for generations helped build this country beyond, before many other cultures even existed, before there's any such thing as a Cinco de Mayo, before anything the such thing as Mexican independence, the American black was in this country, right, doing free labor and getting treated like crap, being enslaved. I'm not talking about the numbers of African ancestors Native blacks that were not enslaved. I'm not talking about that. We're talking about the overall amount of people being either pulled from the great continent of Africa, brought over on those ships free of charge, and the ones that were been of an ancestor of black are being from some people say Turtle Island or whatever other different terminology people use. Black melanated personnel that was already over here before the European conquering, before there's any such thing as a word called Mexico, right? Again, different topics. So today I just want to go over Cinco de Mayo, but black history, get over it. So I thank you for tuning in to the Real CP show.